All right, so today, focusing on the core, on the transverse abdominis, right? There's 4 layers of the core muscles. Mostly, a lot of us, we think about our six-pack muscles, which is our rectus abdominis, which is the topmost layer of the core. There's 4 layers. There's the internal and external oblique muscles. And then there's the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest one, which is the hardest one to activate. And so, usually we, in Pilates class, we spend a lot of time on transverse abdominis. In yoga, we do a lot around the transverse abdominis. But what I worked on in my yoga classes this week is really around understanding when the rectus abdominis contracts and the transverse abdominis contracts. And then when the rectus abdominis is stretched, but the transverse abdominis is contracted. So basically, there isn't any time ever that your transverse abdominis isn't contracted. But it's bringing that next level of awareness of when your rectus abdominis is stretched and when it's contracted. So that's like a different sensation or a different way of thinking about it. Because otherwise, if we just contract, the most or not the most basic, but like the default is to contract everything, right? If we're doing a crunch, we contract everything. And then when we don't do a crunch, we release everything. So it's really fine tuning where we contract. This one is easier, right? Because we could contract everything. But in anything that is a back bend, anything that is where this is lengthened or stretched, how do you maintain the transverse abdominis contracted while you're like, right, it's 2 layers, or it's the first layer and the 4th layer muscle. How do you stretch this one while engaging the transverse? And that bringing that awareness was, like we're always trying to look for strength, right, in new muscles, or not new, we've always had them, but trying to find activation in muscles that we already have in new ways. So that's really that's really our next 10-year journey, right? So we're gonna hopefully bring some more awareness about your transverse abdominis. We've done a couple of classes in the past where we really focus on activation of the transverse abdominis, both in an inhalation and an exhalation. And maybe we do some of that today to kind of bring awareness that the transverse abdominis, the TA, is always on. So let's go ahead and start out onto our, let me see if you can make sure you can see. Come back here. Let's go ahead and start onto our back. Hugging our knees into our chest, rocking from side to side. It is cold this morning. My toes are cold. I've got the heater going. We will probably warm up pretty quickly. So hug the shin bones down. Inhale and expand. Exhale. And really compress into a little ball. Inhale, expand. Exhale. Inhale, expand. Exhale. And just take happy baby here. Rock from side to side, really pressing down in the soles of the feet and just awakening and warming up the muscles. And press into the feet and begin to straighten out the legs, bend the knees and bring them back into a little bit, almost not quite straight, but because we're not warmed up to do that at all. Bend the knees and straighten. Hug the right knee into the chest. Drop the right leg out to the side and tree. Bring it back, cross it across your body. Bring back to the center and switch to the other side. Hug the left knee in the chest, extend the right leg out long, drop it into tree. We're just trying to get the blood flowing this morning. Hug the left knee in the chest, cross the knee over to the right. Because really being able to get the awareness of how you contract your TA is going to tap into like magical strength that you didn't know that you had. Like when you're able to get the transverse engaged, when you are lengthened, that is a very different sensation. I have not been in a class that has worked on that. It's very rare. So we, when we're getting that awareness, it's going to be like game changing in terms of your ability to tap into that strength. So let's go ahead and start with we haven't done in a while because we haven't done all of our core and tuck sequence. So if you have a block, grab a block. If you don't, that's okay too. Just have them handy with you. And we're going to take our arms. We'll take our arms overhead, smashing the block so that we're trying to squeeze some water out of our block. We're going to work on our activation of the difference between our activation of our hamstrings and our hip flexors, because our hip flexors are really important, and then the core in itself, right? The core, which is going to be both your transverse and your rectus abdominis. We're going to activate those this morning. Okay, so in here, we're just going to squeeze the hamstring. So imagine that you had a walnut or a peanut. I guess if you're allergic to nuts, you can hold on to, I don't know, what's something that you can crack that isn't a nut. Put your imaginary walnut behind your calf muscle, and you're just going to squeeze. So that's what hamstrings feel like. Hamstring activation, that's what hamstring feels like. Now, when we start adding new muscles, that's when it gets like a little like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. So we're going to take the tuck, and we're going to just do release the hamstrings, and we're going to do the hip flexors and the core. The hip flexors and the core. So when you smash this down, hands by the block, and really smash that down. Now, if we'll just start there, okay? So then we're going to release and go back to hamstrings. We're going to go back to hamstrings. So just hamstrings, nothing else. You can flex your feet, you can point your feet. I find it's different. It's easier for me to engage my hamstrings when I have my feet flexed. Really, your feet should be pointed. But whatever you need to do to find your hamstrings. Oh, I found my hamstrings. So hamstrings, and then release the hamstrings, and then get to your hip flexors. Really, this is your hip flexors. So hamstrings. Now adding hamstrings plus hip flexors. This is like algebra. We're going to call this yoga algebra. Hamstrings and then hip flexors together. And your legs are probably super tired. Okay, release. All right, I want to do hamstrings, hip flexors. And then we're going to go hip flexors, added core, right? So we're going to go hamstrings, hip flexors. We're going to push we're going to lift our hips up towards the sky. Or we're going to keep reaching the sternum up towards the sky, but then we're also going to curl and lift our hips up. So we're bringing our sternum closer to our belly button. So that should feel pretty intense because we're doing hip flexors and core being the rectus abdominis and the TA at the same time. So hip flexors and core, we're lifting our hips and we're smashing it down and release. Now, what did we probably forget? We probably released our hamstring. So let's just do hip flexors and core one more time. And then we'll do hamstrings, hip flexors, core. Okay, so hip flexors, core first. So hip flexors, core, and this lifts the hips a little bit higher. We want to leave the strain out of the neck. We want to round into a ball. We want to engage through our muscles and release. Now we're going to add the hamstrings. We're going to do hamstrings, hip flexors, core. Ready? And smash your block, hamstrings, hip flexors, and core. And the hamstrings are going to want to release the most. And release. Oh, that was a lot. All to roll round into a little tuck, all to round into a little ball. Okay, let's do that one more time. and then we'll move on. Ready? So hamstrings, squeeze, hip flexors, squeeze, lift the hips up, core. So I'm peeling my hips up towards a little bit higher, higher, and release, and release. Okay, so that was rectus, your six pack plus your TA, your six pack, your R, which is your rectus abdominis, which is that top layer. Your six pack plus your transverse abdominis. Now, all right, so now we're going to take our knees to tabletop. We're going to take our knees to tabletop. We're going to press our low belly into the mat. We're going to take and suck our belly button. Right, we're going to press our low back into the mat. And as we do this, we're going to extend the legs 80% straight, but they're going to stay at level with like where they are right now in space. So when you straighten them, you don't want to kick them up, right? Because that would be higher. We want to extend them and keep the height from the floor the same. And this is going to be super hard. It's going to feel like your feet are going downstairs, but they're not. So you want to keep your low back pressed. And this is extending your six pack, but you have to engage your transverse, and it's very different. It's like it's sliding underneath, like two sliding glass doors. And then bring it back. And then you want to extend, press forward, or extend it, yeah. And you want to slowly, on a count of 5, bring it back. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you want to straighten. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And bring it in. And you want to straighten. 5, 4, 3, 2. And it gets super hard right about here. And then bring it back in. And release. Release, release. Oh. Okay. So what we're really trying to feel and do is we're trying to find our transverse engaging. So can you put your hands onto your belly, and can you engage your transverse when you inhale? When you exhale, it's super easy. Well, it's not. And exhale, it's easier. So if you exhale, can you engage your transverse? Can you keep that engagement when you inhale? It like changes your way that you breathe, right? So if you do the opposite, right? If you inhale and you just let your belly like blow out. So if you go inhale, exhale, engage your transverse. But this time, can you exhale, find the transverse, inhale, keep your transverse engaged, and can you maintain that through the entire class? Because that is going to help you find strength that you didn't know that you had. Inhale. Oh, sorry, exhale. Keep that TA engaged. Now inhale. It's like you have to find space for your breath to go elsewhere. Exhale, exhale, reestablish the connection with your TA, like make that engagement stronger. And then inhale and keep the TA still engaged. It's like I have to find my lungs to expand elsewhere. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So hopefully that feels like a different sensation of your inhalation he's like, you gotta like find, like, it's like you moved into a new house and you gotta find all this new stuff. You gotta put it somewhere else because your TA is like, that room is closed. You can't stash any more stuff in anymore, right? You have to find where to put the air elsewhere. Okay, so now we're going to extend the legs straight up towards the sky. Now, imagine you're reaching your sternum towards the sky because we are in an anterior pelvic tilt here. We're not in a posterior pelvic tilt, which is the rounded, right? Which is kind of like that, right? We're not rounded. We're not rounded in our, we're in an anterior pelvic tilt. So one way to maintain anterior pelvic tilt while we are on our back, one way that helps me think about it was extending the sternum like up towards the sky, which naturally forced me to get this curve in my back. I'm like, oh, anterior pelvic tilt. So now I want to engage my TA. I'm in an anterior pelvic tilt. You can have your hands down by your side, and can you reach the hips towards the sky? So we're not rocking this way. We're reaching them up toward the sky. You may not even move much at all, maybe a millimeter, but like, can you lift your hips up towards the sky and engaging those muscles? Now I'm not moving, I'm not being able to lift, but is my muscles engaged? And I'm finding that anterior pelvic tilt, it's an anterior pelvic tilt, and I'm engaging my core and I'm trying to lift my hips off the mat. It's not going off the mat, but it's an anterior pelvic tilt. Because what happens is, if you do it like the usual way, like what you would default to, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to round your back and lift, right? You're already in a posterior pelvic tilt. And so to engage your transverse abdominis in this way, we are engaging our TA and in an anterior pelvic tilt. Because when you're in an anterior pelvic tilt, your rectus abdominis cannot engage, right? So let's actually come and sit up and do this. Okay. So, I mean, today's going to be just workshop day. We're going to get really deep into our understanding and like dissect these muscles, right? So like here, I mean, we just turned ourselves 90 degrees. This is us on our back, right? This is us rounding our back. This is us in our anterior pelvic tilt. In our anterior pelvic tilt, we're engaging through the transverse, right? If you see the natural curve in my back, right, because of the anterior pelvic tilt and reaching the sternum forward, I can't engage my rectus abdominis. So to get here, it's transverse and hip flexor. Transverse and hip flexor, no rectus abdominis, right? So the more I'm here, I'm not using my six pack. I can't. I'm actually disengaging it. So to actually find those muscles, you can take let's take 2 blocks. And if you have a towel or something to put your feet on as a slidey surface. This is a really good way to find your TA if you do not, but it's just in an anterior pelvic tilt. Right? It's like, how do we engage our muscles in the position that we need to? So we're here. I've got my blocks on either side. We don't want to hunch, right? This is the posterior pelvic tilt. We want an anterior pelvic tilt. We want to come down in an anterior pelvic tilt. We're using our transverse and our hip flexors. We can't use our rectus. We're reaching our sternum forward. And can we here lift and, oops, hold on. Can we pull back? Right, can we actually push back? I guess is the right word. Right, can we, from here, slide on the towel, transverse activation, this is anterior pelvic tilt. Here, engage your serratus and push back. And feel, in order for that to happen, 1, you can't cheat. And 2, it's like, oh, What muscle did you have to engage to really get that to happen? And you can't cheat with your rectus abdominis. Right, so let's try that again. So anterior pelvic tilt right here we can't be rounded because you can't. Anterior pelvic tilt. We come forward with reaching our sternum forward. So this is our hip flexor strength. You want to get into your anterior pelvic tilt, not from your back muscle, right? There's two ways to get into your anterior pelvic tilt, the right way and the not the right way, right? So like a lot of people get into the anterior pelvic tilt by, sticking their butt out, and then you arch your back, and that comes from here, and then it hurts your low back. Your anterior pelvic tilt comes from your hip flexors and your transverse here. And then from here, if you're using the right muscles, you intensify them when you push it back. Whew. That like burn, that's your hip flexor. So your hip flexor is what's going to help you drive into your anterior pelvic tilt. Now, why does this matter? Because when you use your hip flexors to drive into your anterior pelvic tilt, and then you get your transverse involved, and that's how we get in. That is how we should achieve our anterior pelvic tilt in all of our yoga poses. That is how our transverse is on all the time. That's how we use it in all of our poses. How we can tap into the strength of our transverse. Now, since we found it, right? We found the more intensity of that muscle. That is like the same sensation of when we pull the leg, right? That is how we talk about pulling the femur bone back into the hips. That sensation, when you do that, that is that muscle. So if we come back onto our back and put our legs back up in the air, right? So now we're just in the same pose. It's the same pose. We're back up here. Our legs are in the air. I can tell you, just laying on my back feels different now. Or oh, I'm way flatter. I can get into the anterior pelvic tilt much better here now, because I couldn't find it when we first did it on our back. Okay, now I can feel my femur bones pulling into the mat. And then now, can I reach my hips up towards the sky or lift them by maintaining this anterior pelvic tilt? I can feel the right muscles working. Oh, my muscles are shaking already. So this exercise on our back feels different after we did our little slidey, because those muscles are like, oh, you mean those muscles? So let's try this one more time, and then we will get to moving and flowing. So legs up towards the sky, pointing the toes, anterior pelvic tilt from the hip flexors, Oh, all right. Let's rock up to seated. Let's get flowing. I don't know about you, but my hip flexors and my transverse awake. Super awake right now. Super awake. So let's start at the top of the mat and let's get moving. Inhaling, arms up towards the sky. We're going to bring mindfulness to when we have our anterior pelvic tilt. Guess what? We have our anterior pelvic tilt right here and halfway up. So if we're in halfway up, what gets us deeper? My forward fold right now in an anterior pelvic tilt is so much deeper than it's been in like a decade. Plant the hands down, step it back, high plank, lower the knees, chest, chin, roll the shoulders back and down. Cobra. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Inhaling, right leg comes up towards the sky. Right foot in between the hands, runner's lunge. Back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Anterior pelvic tilt right here. So what are we using? We're using our hip flexors and we're using our core to get our anterior pelvic tilt, not our low back. Inhaling, coming all the way back up, floating arms up towards the sky. Close the pose, inhale. Exhale, swan dive it forward. Inhaling halfway up, exhale, plant the hands, step it back, high plank. Lower down knees, chest, chin, roll the shoulders back and down, cobra. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Inhaling, left leg comes up towards the sky. Swing it way forward, runner's lunge. Back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, where were we? Okay, inhaling up dog, exhale down dog. Inhale, left leg comes up towards the sky. Swing it way forward, runner's lunge. Back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Inhaling all the way back up, floating arms up towards the sky. And close the pose. Inhale. Exhale, swan dive it forward. Inhaling halfway up. Exhale, step the right foot back, drop the right knee down. Inhale, forward, up and back. Anjani, inhale, exhale, open. So inhale, can you engage your transverse? Inhale. Exhale, plant the hands down, step it back, high plank. Lower down, inhaling up dog. Exhale, tuck the toes, press it back, downward facing dog. Inhaling, right leg comes up towards the sky, swing it way forward, runner's lunge. Drop the back knee down, inhale, forward, up and back. Exhale, open. Inhale, engage the transverse. Exhale, engage the transverse. Inhale, engage the transverse. Exhale, engage the transverse. Inhale, arms up, windmill the hands down, step back, high plank, lower down. Inhaling up dog. Exhale, tuck the toes, press it back. Downward facing dog. Inhaling, left leg comes up towards the sky, swing it way forward, runner's lunge, back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Inhaling all the way back up, moving arms up towards the sky, and close the pose. Inhale. Exhale, swan dive it forward. Inhaling, anterior pelvic tilt. So you're pulling your femur bones into the hip pelvic bowl. Forward fold. Step the right foot back, drop the back knee down, inhale, forward, up and back. Now, when you engage your transverse, you can do a deeper back bend. Yeah, so when you are, right, so here's the example where your rectus abdominis has to lengthen, right? You have to let that go. But that doesn't mean our transverse we let go. We have to engage our transverse. And when you engage your transverse, magically you are able to go deeper into your back bend. So inhale. Exhale, engage your transverse. Now inhale into your transverse. Engage. Exhale. So you can use your left hand onto your thigh bone. Inhale. Exhale. But when you inhale, engage your transverse. And you can, for me, I go deeper into my back bend when I do the engagement of my transverse in inhalation. And slowly come back out. Slowly come back out. Plant the hands down. Come to all fours. Lower down. Roll the shoulders back and down. Cobra. Tuck the toes. Lift the hips downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg comes up back towards the sky. Swing it way forward, runner's lunge. Drop the back knee down. Inhale. Exhale. So find your transverse, right hand onto the thigh. Inhale, tall. Engage your transverse. Exhale. Engage your transverse. All the time. Inhale. Engage. Exhale. Engage. Inhale. Engage. Exhale. Engage. Inhale. Engage. Exhale. Engage. Inhale, come up. Windmill the hands down. Pop the back knee off the mat, back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Inhale, come all the way back up. And close the pose. So we're engaging our transverse. We're engaging our hip flexors when we're in our forward folds. And then when we are in our back bends, we are lengthening our hip flexors, but still engaging our transverse. So all time, we're engaging our transverse. Inhale. Exhale, swan dive it forward. Inhaling halfway up. Exhale. Left foot back, drop the back knee down. Inhale, forward, up and back. Now tuck the back toe under and come up into crescent lunge and stay low. But we're engaging our transverse. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Windmill the hands down. Step it back, lower down, inhaling up dog. Exhale, tuck the toes, press it back, downward facing dog. In down dog, we're in an anterior pelvic tilt. We're in an anterior pelvic tilt in our down dog. So can you find your transverse and your hip flexors? And can you get into the anterior pelvic tilt, not from your low back, but from your hip flexors? Inhale, left leg comes up towards the sky, swing it way forward, runner's lunge, drop the back knee down, Anjanyas. Inhale, forward, up and back. Find your engagement. Find your engagement of your transverse. Pop the back knee off the mat, stay low in a low crescent lunge. But find your transverse in your inhalation. Inhale, engage. Exhale, engage. Inhale, engage. Exhale, engage. Windmill the hands down, pop the back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Anterior pelvic tilt here. Anterior pelvic tilt. Inhaling, coming all the way back up, floating arms up towards the sky. And close the pose. Inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhaling halfway up, anterior pelvic tilt. So find your transverse and your hip flexors pulling, right? This femur bone pulling. Can you fold deeper in your anterior pelvic tilt? Plant the hands down, step it back, high plank. So in your plank, you were in a posterior pelvic tilt. So when you're a posterior pelvic tilt, you use both the six pack and the transverse. So it's very different. Lower down, inhaling up dog. Exhale, tuck the toes, press it back, downward facing dog. In an anterior pelvic tilt, you're lengthening, so you're stretching the six pack and you are engaging through your transverse and you're pulling with your hip flexor, right? The femur bone going into the hip socket. Inhaling, right leg comes up towards the sky, swing it way forward, runner's lunge. Come on up to crescent lunge. Come on up to crescent lunge. Now we're going to come forward into, I think it's flamingo. I think that's what it's called. Warrior 3 with a tucked leg. Okay, warrior 3 with a tucked leg. So your back is not rounded. So what do I mean by that? So come into warrior 3. Or warrior 3. It's neutral hips, right? We're not rounding through our hips. Bring the left knee tucked. The leg that's tucked, right, is an and that hip is when your leg is tucked, you're using your transverse and your hip flexor, not your rectus, right? When your leg is tucked here, we're going to fly into warrior 3. We're going to stand into our right leg. We're going to pull our left knee into a ball. If you need to support on a couch, that's okay too. But we're not rounding, right? We're not rounding into our back. We want to reach our collarbone or sternum forward, and this will engage our core muscle, not our rectus, and our hip flexors. And now we're in flamingo. I don't know what sounds flamingo makes. I'll have to ask Kiki what sound flamingos make. But now we're in flamingo. And you can put your hand on the couch or the wall or anything like that. And slowly come on up. Toss the right hand over and just squeeze and hug your left knee into your chest. We're opening up through the right hip flexor. Ooh. And then release, 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 and we'll come into standing. All right. Whew. All right, standing at the top of the mat. All right, so remember, we're bringing awareness into when we're engaging our core and when we're not. When we engage our core muscles, we're going to find immediate strength because we're just going to turn on muscles that we already had that we didn't know that we had. Inhaling, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhaling halfway up, engaging through our low belly, our core muscle. We're pulling our hip flexors. Plant the hands down, step it back, high plank. Lower down knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. Inhaling, up dog or cobra. So roll the shoulders back and down. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing doggy. Now in our down dog, we are in our anterior pelvic tilt. So what that means is we're tipping the pelvic soup bowl forward. We're pulling our sit bones up towards the sky. We're trying to find our transverse abdominis, which is our deepest muscle of the core, to engage. And we want to let our six-pack muscle relax, because here we're trying to engage. We're trying to engage our core muscle. Inhaling, left leg comes up towards the sky. Swing it way forward in between the hands, runner's lunge. You can always put your back knee down. Inhale, come on up, crescent lunge, reaching the arms up towards the sky. So we're stomping through our left foot. We're pressing our right heel forward. We're opening our right hip flexor here. You can always put your back knee down. We're going to fly forward into warrior 3. So we're going to shift the way forward like airplane arms. We're going to come forward. We're going to balance. We're going to smash our left toe into the ground like we're pulling a fishing line from our left toe into our belly button. We're going to reach our right leg back. You can stay here. You can take the leg into a tuck into flamingo. So in tuck, remember, anterior pelvic tilt. So we're not rounding our back. We're engaging through our hip flexor. So in order to maintain this without rounding our back to build strength, we have to do an anterior pelvic tilt. So we're just hugging the leg. We're hugging the knee into the chest and slowly coming up into one-legged standing, tossing the arm back. And release. And then come into standing, inhaling, arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive it forward. Inhaling halfway up. Exhale, plant the hands, step it back, high plank. Lower down knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga all the way down onto the belly. Inhale, roll the shoulders back and down. And come up for up dog. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Downward facing dog. And remember, yoga is not about being able to do the pose. Yoga is just about being here and finding mobility and movement and being together. It does not matter if you can or cannot do the pose. The hardest thing to do is simply just show up. And because you show up, you will get stronger. You have no choice. You will learn something new. I promise you that. Inhaling, right leg comes up towards the sky. Swing away, forward runner's lunge. We're going to come into side angle. So let me turn around and face you guys. So in side angle, our right foot is facing forward. Yes, it's facing forward. The left foot is turned in 30 to 45 degrees. We're coming down with our forearm onto our right thigh, sending the right knee forward and twisting up towards the sky. So if this is too much, you can always come out of it and then come back in, right? You can always come out of it like 60% and hang out and then come back in. And slowly come on up for warrior two. The base is the same. The arms just reach forward and back. Hip bones face me so that we're opening up through the hips. Then we're breathing. And so here, today's theme is just about breath. Can we inhale and keep the belly engaged? Can we exhale and keep the belly engaged? Keeping the belly engaged during exhalation is a whole lot easier than keeping the belly engaged during inhalation. And so literally, if you just stood there and did that, that would be an amazing practice, just to be able to engage our belly when we inhale. Straightening out both legs, turn the toes and heels out. Inhaling, arms up towards the sky. Exhale, forward fold. So in here, our hips should be in an anterior pelvic tilt. So what that means is imagine we're tipping our pelvic bowl, our pelvis, like a big soup bowl, like we're going to drink some soup. So we're going to tip our pelvic soup bowl forward and dump all the soup out, which would be very sad because I love soup. I miss having soup for dinner every night. It makes me sad, but I don't know how to make soup the way that my mom did. So we're going to tip our pelvic soup bowl forward. Our tailbone, our sit bone goes up towards the sky, and we're still trying to find that inhalation engagement of the belly. So when we inhale, can we contract our belly? Inhaling halfway up, we're going to bend our knees like into a big wide squat. I'm going to reach forward like we're trying to reach, like we're going to hold up a big soup bowl. And then we're going to plant our hands down, straighten out the legs, come forward, flat back. Inhale, contract the belly. Exhale. We're going to do that wide squat again. Bend the knees, sink the hips way back. Reach like you're holding a big soup bowl. And then place the hands down, shift the weight forward, flat back. Now like you put the soup bowl on your back. And you serve the soup bowl. Now I really want to get some soup for dinner tonight. And then big squat, bend the knees, reach the soup bowl, pick up the soup bowl forward. And then plant the hands down, flat back. Inhale, contract the belly. Micro bend the knees, slowly roll on up. Walk the feet closer together, turn the right toes forward. We're going to come to triangle pose. Placing the right hand on the back of the right hand on the inner right thigh. We're going to twist. We're going to twist the rib cage. So you take your left hand onto your right. Here's my belly fat. And then we're going to twist and lift up towards the sky into triangle pose. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Inhale, engage through the belly. Exhale. It's easier to exhale, engage through the belly, and then inhale, engage through the belly. And you got to put the air somewhere else because you're engaging through the belly. There's no more room there. There's no more room there. No more room. No room. And release. Release, release. We're going to shift the way forward. We're going to go into half moon. Half moon. If you have a block, great. If you don't have a block, that's okay. You might not need a block. You're going to come forward, right hand down in front of the right foot. Right hand down in front of the right foot. You're going to find left hand to your left ankle, crunch. So right here, very similar to what we did before, we're not rounding our back. It's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to round my back. So from here, when you're in this tuck, can you reach your collarbone forward? That immediately puts your back in a different place. Now you can engage your transverse, your belly muscle, your core muscle, engage through the belly, because now we're not engaging our six pack. And then lift the knee. So now in your half moon with an arc, with the bind, you can optional not have the bind and just extend your legs straight. But now you're engaging the core without your six pack. Release, tuck the left knee behind the right ankle and come down and have a seat. So it looks like this, right? So my right foot is over my left knee is bent. I'll turn around so you can see. So now you're like this. Now we're going to take the twist. Right hand down, left arm goes up towards the sky. We're going to take the twist. Inhale tall, exhale. Guess what? Our transverse is on. Our transverse abdominis, the fourth muscle, the deepest muscle of the core. We always talk about our core. You need your core to protect your back. When you're running around after the kids, you don't throw your back out, right? Because Kaiden is 2 and he wants me to go race this garbage truck. And I have to the garbage truck is like a foot off the ground. And so I'm leaning down, running after him, racing with him after the garbage truck, and my low back is done, right? So our transverse is always on. In twist, inhale. Guess what? It's on. Exhale. It's on. Our deepest part of the core muscle is always on. So really, why are we doing this? We're doing this so we don't throw out our back when we're chasing our kids around for the next 10 years. And then they'll have grandkids. Kiki's like, I want another baby. I'm like, I'm not having a baby. You want a baby? You have one when you're 30. I'm like, no more babies. All righty. And then come back. Now, look, we're in a low lunge. Inhale. Forward, up and back. Our right knee is forward. Our left knee is down. We're reaching our arms back. We're protecting our low back by always keeping our core, our deep muscle of the core. The core is between the belly button and your pelvic bone. So down here. That muscle is always smashing back into your spine. And then windmill the hands down. Come into all fours. We're going to barrel roll it out. So we're just going to roll like a barrel, like a big old wine barrel. And then we're going to change sides. And we're going to roll and get some mobility into our spine. And then we're going to come on down onto our belly, cobra or up dog. Now remember here, even in your up dog, you are engaging through your low belly. You're pulling your belly in and then tucking the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. Downward facing dog, we're in an anterior pelvic tilt. If you don't know what an anterior pelvic tilt, don't worry about it. We're just going to hang out in down dog. You're going to lift your tailbone up towards the sky. We talk about that, but the muscles today, we're talking about the muscles that it takes to do that. We don't want to use our low back muscles. We want to use our low belly muscles, our transverse muscles, and our hip flexor muscles. Inhaling, left leg comes up towards the sky. Swing it way forward, runner's lunge. We're going to come into that side angle on this side, drop the back heel down. So our left foot is pointed forward. Our right foot is turned in about 30 to 45 degrees. Left knee is bent. Left knee is over our left ankle. We're straightening our right leg. We're trying to smash the bug that is underneath the right foot. The hips point towards me so that we're opening up through the hips. We're in side angle. So our left forearm is either down onto our left knee or down onto a block. Either way, we want to keep this lifted. The left rib cage is lifted, reaching up towards the sky. Right. So send that left knee forward. And if you got to come out of this pose, you can come out of it and come back in. The only thing that is required in class is just to breathe. So all you got to do is breathe, and you have succeeded. Inhaling, come on up into warrior two. So the base stays the same. You're reaching your right arm to the right side, to the either side of the wall. Can you find the engagement in your low belly? So when you inhale, can you feel that engagement? Turn the toes in, heels out. Wide-legged forward fold, inhaling, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. So wide-legged forward fold. When we inhale, we're still engaging through the low belly. We're going to put our, we're going to put our right hand down. Exhale, twist to the left. Ooh. We're going to put our left hand down and we're going to twist to the right. And then come back down. Right hand down, and we're going to twist to the left. Shift the weight forward. We're going to put our left hand down and we're going to twist to the right. I'm going to bend the right knee, keep the left leg straight in our transverse lunge. Flexing through the left toes. Straighten out both legs, lift the hips up towards the sky. Left, bend the left knee, straighten out the right leg. Transverse lunge. We're opening up the inner thighs. And then we're going to come back up, straightening out both legs. We're going to turn the left toes forward, so we're in triangle pose. So we're going to left toes forward to the mat. Right toes we're going to turn in, and we'll come into triangle pose. You know, through this whole thing, when we inhale, we engage through our low belly. So we exhale, engage through the belly. Inhale, keep the belly engaged, but lengthen through the sternum. So today's theme is really about finding that deep muscle of the core and keeping that engaged no matter what else is happening. And that's super, super advanced. So if you're like, I just want to breathe, that's cool too. So we're in triangle pose, both legs straight, using the back of the left hand to twist. You can take your right hand onto your left rib cage and twist yourself up towards the sky. So imagine you're placing your back onto a wall. You're trying to fit in between two panes of glass. Bend the left knee. We're going to come into half moon. We're going to come optionally into that tuck. So left hand down onto a block or onto the floor. Float the right leg off the mat. Right hand optional, you can tuck this leg. Right, today's all about getting that, not that rounded back. So here in that tuck, if you choose to do the tuck, we're not rounding our back, we're reaching our collarbone forward. We're engaging through our hip flexor, we're squeezing, we're using our low belly. And then we flip it so that we grab the ankle and lift the knee. And then release, we tuck our right knee behind our left ankle. Oh, whew, for that twist. Oh, that's a lot of muscles. All right, transverse is on. Your transverse is on, your core is on all the time, especially in twists. So we're gonna
twist over to the left. Our right arm goes to the outside of the left thigh, and we're going to twist. Right thigh. No, dude, don't break the. Inhale tall. Exhale, twist. Inhale tall. Exhale, twist. Inhale tall. Exhale, twist. Oh. And release. Release, release. Take your legs out as wide as the mat, knees together, and we'll just drop them side to side to windshield wiper the knees. Getting that hip mobility, that joint mobility. So even just moving the joints, right? I mean, oh, I haven't taken my car for a tune-up. It keeps yelling at me. You know, nowadays, like, the cars are like so smart, or not smart, but like, you know, before it's just everything is analog, right? So you're just like, okay, my car needs maintenance. But now everything's digital. So like every time I get in the car, it's like you're 4,000 miles over your maintenance thing. So it's very annoying. But your body needs a tune-up too, right? Your body needs kind of like an oil change. So when you move your joints, that actually stimulates synovial fluid, which is the lubricant in your joints. And so you got to always keep your, you know, gotta keep your muscle, or your muscles, your bones and your joints well oiled. So I always talk about doing yoga is like, that's my like daily body tune-up, my maintenance of my body. All right. Okay, let us come back into all fours. And we will wind a barrel roll out the spine, right? Getting more joint and mobility. I'm going to tuck the toes, lift the hips. You're in downward facing dog. We're in anterior pelvic tilt. So that means it's the opposite of rounding. So anterior pelvic tilt means take that big soup bowl and dump it forward. Dump all the soup out forward. And lifting the tailbone up towards the sky. You're engaging through your low belly. You're getting deeper into your down dog. Inhaling, left leg comes up towards the sky. Left foot in between the hands, runner's lunge. Look up, back foot to the top of the mat, forward fold. Take your feet slightly wider than hips width distance apart. You may or may not need a block. We're going to bend the right knee. Keep the left leg straight. We're going to bend the right knee, keep the left leg straight. Right hand down, we're going to twist to the left. We're going to twist to the leg that is straight. And then we're going to put the left hand down, big old squat, bend the knees. And we're going to switch sides, left hand down, right leg straight, left leg bent. And now we're going to twist. And then we're going to switch. We're going to bend both knees, right hand down, left leg straight, twisting over to the left. This is going to open up your low back, bend, squat, twist to the right, straighten out the right leg, keep that left knee bent. And maybe each time you twist, can you go a little deeper? Now remember, twists require you to use your core. So this is not about arching your back or throwing your neck. This really comes from the core. So the space between your belly button and your pubic bone. And twist one more time. Straighten out the right leg and twist, twist, twist. Now come down, heels together, knees apart, into Malasana. Heels together, knees apart. Reach your arms out forward and send your tailbone back. You're trying to open up your low back. Now we are rounding our back. Now we actually do want to round our back. So that means you're going to use both your six pack and your TA muscle. So everything crunches. You're trying to drive your tailbone towards the ground. You're trying to round, round, round. You're trying to drive the crown of your head and your tailbone towards the ground. If you want to, you can take your arms, wrap them palms up. So I wrap them in the front of on the inside of my legs, and then palms up, and then I sit my heels on my hands, and you can round into a little ball. And release. Drop your knees down. We're going to do lion. So drop the knees down, plant the hands down, arch the back. And when I say arch the back, I don't want you to do it from your low back because I don't want you to hurt your back. This is from pelvic tilt, like from the hip flexors in the core. So less about using your low back and more about using your hip flexors. These are these muscles. The hip flexors are the muscles that you bend this joint. You know. So do it from the hip flexors. We're going to do lion pose. Lion pose. Inhale. Close your eyes. Inhale. Stick out your tongue. And exhale. Like a big lion. So big inhale. Stick out your tongue. Big exhale. One more time. Inhale. Big inhale. Engaging through your core. Exhale. And come back and round, round, round. And twist it out. Okay, so now we can come down and have a seat. Ooh. All right. Whew. Okay, so we have, let's do star pose. Star pose, so a little different than butterfly. Butterfly is when your feet are together and it's as close to you as possible, and we try to, actually we can do that. We'll do star pose first. So star pose is when it's a little bit further out in front. We're reaching our collarbone and our sternum forward. So we're getting that anterior pelvic tilt, which is we're tipping that soup bowl forward and we're coming forward. Now slowly coming up. Now we can draw the feet in closer. Now with Baddha Konasana, butterfly pose, a lot of people, we actually wanted to be actually very active through the feet. We actually want to be pressing the feet together. And if you notice, once you press your feet together, these muscles start lighting up. Your leg muscles start lighting up. So it's less about like, oh, we're just going to hang out here, we're going to wobble, right? You know that if we, to gain flexibility, we have to build strength. They're actually two sides of the same coin. And if you want to become more flexible, actually, you need to build strength in order to get that flexibility. And you have flexibility and impacts the amount of strength that you can build. So they're intricately and in a like an infinite loop together around strength and flexibility, right? Like, you know, someone touching their toes, is it more flexibility? Actually, if you had more strength, you could actually touch your toes too, right? Because it's like a pulley system. You don't have the flexibility, so you need more strength to touch it. Or if you have more flexibility, you don't need as much strength. So if you ratchet, your flexibility increases and your strength increases, both of those will allow you to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But anyway, back to Baddha Konasana, we're trying to like it's like a book. Your feet is like a book. We're trying to peel the feet so it's like a book, but and the toes are very active. So my toes are like this. I don't know if you can see. My toes are like this. They're not just hanging out. They're like super duper active. And then I'm smashing my feet together, which turns on my inner thighs. And then I'm also trying to peel my feet apart like a book. And that is my butterfly pose. And I'm reaching, so I'm not rounding my back. I'm reaching my chest forward. So if I give you a profile view, maybe you can see that a little bit better. So instead of rounding my back, I want to reach forward, right? It's not about coming down. It's more about reaching forward. And then from here, if I come down, great. But this is where we need to be, because this actually strengthens your mid back. So right here, we're strengthening our mid back right now. Oh yes, I feel it. I feel it. Oh. Ooh. All right. See, everything's connected. You need to have your transverse on. You need to have your mid back on. So go ahead and take your legs out into let's do head to knee pose. So one knee bent, your right knee is bent. The sole of the foot is to the inside of the thigh. We're going to come to the outside of the left toe, inhaling tall. Exhale, come to the outside of the left foot. And if you need a strap or a towel, right, there's no like, oh, this amazing thing when you touch your toes. There's nothing like healthier or better by being able to touch your toes. So you can use a strap or a towel or a t-shirt or a jacket. That's totally fine. But the thing that we're trying to achieve or get to is, instead of this rounding of the back, we want to reach your collarbone forward. We want to actually contract these muscles. So if I had to like scratch your back in between your shoulder blades to help you to like lift and shorten those muscles and reach, and then come down with that activation of your mid back. And release. We're going to swing the left leg around for pigeon. So you can swing. You can either do this and swing your left leg around for pigeon, like so. Left leg behind you. The right knee is to the outside of the right rib cage. Draw your chest forward. So we're activating through the mid back. I know we didn't work on the mid back today. That will be for another day. And then we will come on down. So for our new friends here today, we pick a different theme every week, and then we focus on that theme. And no two classes are ever alike. I don't think I've ever taught two classes that are alike. I'd be bored. So in pigeon, you can just come on down. We're opening up our piriformis, which is that deep hip muscle. And just hang out. There was this one guy at 24 Hour Fitness. I can't remember whose class it was, but he would teach that he taught the same thing, the same routine, like every class for like 10 years. I'm like, and he had a huge class following, and people loved it. I'm like, oh, I mean, people do like predictability. I get bored, and then your body doesn't like progress. I mean, it's, does it keep it mobile? Yeah, sure, it keeps your body mobile, but our body adapts. Our body's really smart. It will adapt. There's just not enough, time in the day to go through like all the different, like every different aspect. We typically spend about an hour and a half just on like one aspect. All right, come on back. And we will, let's see. We will come back to seated. We're going to switch sides. We're going to bend the left knee, straighten out the right. Inhale tall. Exhale to the outside of the right pinky toe. So our left knee is bent, our right leg is straight. Oh, yeah. This was like, because we didn't work on the low back, right? We didn't work on the twist. We didn't work on the back. So I definitely can't touch my toes as easily on this side because we haven't worked on it. Right? Sometimes it takes like an hour to work on and open up a muscle to be like, oh, okay, we can do this pose now. But today we worked on pelvic bowl. We worked on finding our transverse abdominis. We worked on turning that on while we lengthen the front of our body. Maybe finding that muscle, maybe finding a new muscle that you didn't know that you already had. Reaching the collarbone forward, being mindful of the opposite of rounding your back. You're going to need that mid back, that the muscles in between your shoulder blades, your trapezius, you're going to need that to turn on. And release. We're going to come into pigeon. We're going to swing the right leg around.
And I have no idea why my Apple Watch isn't buzzing. That's why I missed your message. Like after the latest update, like my Apple Watch has not been like, doing the notification, which is greatly negatively impacts my life because I depend on my Apple Watch to buzz me to remind me of like what to do. And then come on down for Pigeon. Oh. I am way more flexible now after 2 kids and a whole lot of yoga than I've ever been. Way flexible at 42 than at 22, hands like easily. Way stronger, way more flexible. And that's because I have you guys, so that I don't have to deal with the kids for an hour and a half. I was like, sorry, mommy's gonna go teach yoga. It's mommy's time now. So. All right, slowly coming back up. Let's come onto our back. Oh, windshield wiper the knees. So take the feet as wide as the mat. Knees together, we're going to drop them over left and right, side to side. Are we still breathing? I hope we're still breathing. Are we still inhaling with a contracted core muscle? It takes a lot of thought. I mean, even we could sit in child's pose, and it would take probably a lot of brain cells to remind ourselves to keep the core engaged or even extra engaged when we're inhaling. I don't know, can you hear Kaiden? He's like screaming outside my door. Okay, take happy baby. I'm going to take happy baby. Rock from side to side. Massaging out the low back. Hugging the knees into the chest, rounding to a ball. Take the feet together, knees apart. We're going to stir the knees like stirring the pot. We're going to stir that pot of soup. I'm totally going to get takeout tonight now and get like whatever the daily Chinese soup is because now I want soup. We're going to plant the soles of the feet down for bridge pose. We're going to open up. So now we're just going to stretch out everything that we contracted today. So bridge pose, plant the soles of the feet down. We're going to roll the shoulders open, lift the hips, tuck the hips, lift the hips. Weeble wobble your shoulders. So maybe you interlace the fingers underneath your hips. Press down onto your forearms and your pinky. You're going to press your feet down. You're going to lift your hips up towards the sky. You're trying to get the sternum closer to your nose. Sternum closer to your nose. What we're doing is we're opening up the front of the body. So we're opening up all that we contracted today. So we contracted our hip flexors. We contracted our low belly muscle. We're trying to open those up. So we're counter stretching everything that we're doing today. And then when we slowly come on down, we want to think that there are headlights in our knees that are shining forward. Pull the feet back towards our ears and then slowly lower down one vertebra at a time. And then a couple more rounds of bridge pose to really open up the front of the body if you want to, and wheel is part of your practice. You can do wheel. Tuck the toes, or actually tuck the toes. Lift the hips into bridge pose. Release and come on down. So you can do bridge pose, or if you want to, you can do wheel. We did not open up the shoulders today. You need open shoulders to do wheel if you have tight shoulders. But for wheel, we take our hands, we tuck the elbow, we point the elbows up towards the sky. We plant the palms down so that the fingers are facing towards our feet. Press down into the feet. Oh, and your transverse is on. So if you have wheel, your transverse is on in wheel. And slowly come on down when you're ready. I probably got like an extra 2 millimeters out of my wheel by thinking about my transverse being on. It was a little different sensation, but it was like, oh, I found more strength to get to my wheel because I was engaging more muscles. So, all right. When you're ready, come on down, extend the legs out long, take the arms overhead, give yourself a nice big stretch, closing the eyes here. Lower the hands down by your side, palms facing up towards the sky, opening up through the shoulder blades. Just kind of give yourself that space. And preparing for Savasana, corpse pose. And then feel the mat and the floor pushing up against you on your body. Bringing awareness into where the mat or the carpet or the floor is touching and supporting your body. What is the texture of the contact between your body and the floor or the mat that is supporting you? Bringing awareness to how that feels. Sink heavier into the floor. Feeling the floor push up to you. Slowly rolling over to one side, resting your head onto your forearm. Taking a moment to inventory how your body feels right now. Knowing that you created this sensation and feeling, that you are your own teacher and that I am here but merely to guide you. Slowly pressing yourself up to seated.
I'm here. Mommy.
Slowly pressing yourself up to seated, rooting your sit bone into the earth. Floating arms up towards the sky, clasping palms together, drawing them down to heart center. Bowing forward. Namaste.